Hello and welcome to the Sheep Seats. I am your host, Matthew, aka Sheep, aka Dark Sheep, and we have reached the end of the baseball draft season, and we're doing a little bit something different here at the Sheep Seats. We are going to be having some conversations with pretty much whoever wants to come on and talk fantasy sports, life, whatever, and we're gonna bring in Brad here, who you might know or might not know as Freerolls DFS. I like you're just everywhere, in like I've been around. I don't know, 5 years, just in various communities and stuff, and like I've seen you around forever. We've talked here and there about random things. So Brad, welcome. How are you tonight?
I'm really feeling bad for you. I feel like this is a big swing that you're taking, like a massive gamble for me as your first guest about things where I think people would probably be more interested in someone they recognize, know, respect, just the basics. So big swing. Really happy to be the last guest ever on your show. Thank you.
Well, I'm too stubborn to let that happen. We'll be continuing, and actually, I have started uh, putting together some kind of like a roundtable next week of underdog players, just like general players that don't really do content, don't do they tweet sometimes. They're in various Discord communities that I'm in, but not really any names. I'm kind of excited for that, and I'm going to put together just like some roundtable questions, state of underdog from like a player perspective, not from like a content perspective. So I'm kind of excited about that. And if uh, you are out there watching this and you would like to be a part of that, hit up some of my DMs, and yeah, I'll get you added on to that. So yeah, Brad, number one, how did you, or how long have you been in doing fantasy, and then when did you start like the DFS side of things?
Well, Matthew, I was a sad child, neglected, left alone a lot of the time. Uh, you know, I didn't start talking till I was like 5, but what I loved was math. It's like every DFS guy's story. They're like, "Oh, I was a math guy. I was really into numbers."
Or a poker?
No, I was, but actually, where I started was I had a bad breakup with a girlfriend in the '90s because I'm very old. People may not realize how old I am because I'm so handsome, but had a bad breakup with a girlfriend and was like, I'm going to get into football. This is a thing that I'm suddenly passionately going to care about. It was banned in my house growing up. My father was such a sports fan that once we lived in Colorado as a kid, once the Broncos lost a Super Bowl, twice the Broncos lost a Super Bowl, many times the Broncos lost a Super Bowl, and my dad would destroy many things in our house. And so football was banned in our house. And so as a teenager, the ultimate act of rebellion was like, I'm going to really get into football. And
What?
Yahoo had just started. And so I got into a Yahoo Fantasy Football League. That was the first thing I did in like 1990. I want to say 96. And that was like my first league. And then from there, it popped off quickly. And within a couple of years, I was playing in a full team legacy league. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a dynasty league, but there's an actual number of teams that match the actual number of NFL teams.
Okay.
The buy-in for that was 30,000
Oh boy.
cash. Yeah.
Okay.
And you bought a franchise, and then each year you paid dues, and you had to pay to draft and to draft players. And you effectively had a salary, and all of that went in the pool. It was an extremely complex system that I'd gotten into, and that I just started loving everything about fantasy after that. It was incredible, man. Never won that league. Never won that league. It was a pure money loser for me. When I eventually sold my team, I got back a good amount for the franchise fee, but I think I probably lost like $60,000 within a couple of years.
Well,
Like I was a teenager too. It was wild.
wow. But I gotta jump back to your dad. Did he gamble, or he just got that invested?
No, my dad was just he was just a really quality person
Okay.
who felt that life was against him, and that like his avatars for greatness were athletes. I'm sure you know these guys, although they're usually like college sports guys who
Okay.
are like, so invested in these things that it really damages them emotionally. Frank is great, by the way. If anybody doesn't know Frank, he's
I
on
don't know.
Twitter as like Tilted. He has a great Discord that's absolutely free. There's a bunch of people in there that produce good content, so I'll plug Frank for him.
Oh, all right. I'll have to look into him.
But yeah, like it was just one of those things where people often become really attached to teams. And when we talk
Sure.
about like DFS, gambling, anything that's sports related, it is a huge advantage to not have those kind of relationships. To like not care if the Milwaukee Brewers get knocked out in the first round,
Yeah,
even if you've invested heavily in them, you know.
I switched hats. We're on the Twins bandwagon for fandom, and Phillies bandwagon for money reasons. But yeah, for me, it's like I need like the Brewers are like the only one that I'm still. What's up, Nez? The Brewers are like the one team I'm still like emotionally invested in, just because I love baseball so much, and I love going to games and like the process around games. So yeah, I definitely love that, and like I have a history there that I don't love. But if you give me a day, like I thought about opening up with a rant about how the Brewers are never gonna win the World Series because they don't have an owner that's gonna commit. But whatever, I don't. I'm already over it a day and a half or a day later. It's
I'm sorry. Like, you know, it's actually something I'm very upset about because we've talked about this, and you know that I was like, I really felt like their chances were much better than where people had put them. Losing a huge piece of the rotation is like a major problem, and it's hard for me to believe that there wasn't some psychological impact from that on a team that needed to be scrappy in the box because their
yeah,
batters just, you know, the lineup behind the lineup to bat was not great, but
yeah, no,
the pitching
and
was the best in the postseason. It wasn't even
yeah,
close.
and just like they're just like full of flat guys. There's no like spark plug in the lineup to like Adames was that last year, but I don't know, don't need to talk about baseball. That's not exactly what
No,
we're here
I mean,
for.
but we can talk about. I love baseball. But yeah, so it was a thing where I got into fantasy sports in 1999. Dude, my life is so weird. I accidentally got hired when I was in high school at a college radio station, and this guy kept firing me, but then he'd call me to cover people's shifts because it's like a college radio station, nobody's paid. So I'd
Like
keep
on
showing up,
air
and I did that.
or
Yeah. Because like, college radio is just real. At least back then, it was just real casual, laissez-faire. It was in a small town, and so this guy kept calling me. He'd fire me. He'd have me come in and cover shifts. In '99, he went to go work as the programs director for a local ESPN affiliate, and he took me with him. And then I started working at an ESPN affiliate, calling games. Then I became a credentialed sports journalist for a little while, and
okay.
then I went to work for ESPN, actual ESPN, for just a couple months, pretty much as a stringer. And then I went to go work in TV, and it was a weird thing, man. During that time, I was playing poker. Uh, I always want to name drop, but like I became good friends with someone who would later become a professional baseball player who just retired during spring training of this year, and
No.
is a great guy, and long career. And so it ended up working well. And then I went to San Diego and did some odd jobs around there, and then got a job doing some contract work for the Padres. So I went to every Padres game for every home game for a couple of years.
In
But
part
yeah,
broadcasting for or media for
nope,
them. No.
parking.
Oh,
I
okay.
always like to be like, I worked at ESPN, then I went to work for the San Diego Padres. But like, as a contractor who managed parking lots and then managed some of their parking stuff. Basically, just like you have to do security pieces and everything, and it was just a contract thing. So I just basically had other employees. It was like running a concession stand, essentially. But no, man, like I know you like going to the games. That's it for me. I love being at the games.
Yeah.
I've gone to almost every current Major League Baseball stadium.
Oh, excellent.
And yeah, I'll sit there. I take score.
Okay.
I only listen to the radio broadcasts. I don't usually watch on TV.
Yeah, you are old. No, I also listen to the Brewers on the radio, partially because of blackout restrictions, but
yeah, the MLB at Bat app. It's like what, $3.99 a month for all the radio channels. It's crazy cheap.
yeah, and it comes with the MLB.TV full subscription. So I just get that, and I'll be watching one game and listening to the Brewers. But yeah.
If my name's not a giveaway, I'm very, very cheap. And that's like, I think that's probably the interesting part about DFS for me. And that's maybe what we want to talk about.
Yeah. Like that was the first time I noticed you was because was in the Roto Grinders Discord community. So I had and still mostly I'm just like a cheap, a low stakes DFS player. You know, I've upped more into some of these season long underdog stuff, like as I've had some ability to grow the bankroll, but I've always been hard to commit like a bunch of money. So I noticed your name, you know, and at that point you were sort of to go along with your name, you were like collecting your Twitter account was mostly just collecting free roll contests or contests that were going to overlay and just sharing them with people. So I don't know if we're skipping ahead in time there, but how did you start doing that, or why did you start sharing that?
No, it's really tied to like my DFS history. I can do my whole DFS history in like 2 sentences.
Okay.
When FanDuel opened, I got a FanDuel account. I put $20 in it. I joined some contests. I lost that $20 and I said, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. I'll never do this again. There's no chance. Like, this is for suckers. I hate it. There was this guy named Brian Tulloch who's completely gone now out of the space, but he used to be on Twitter. He used to write on Fansite. It had great columns. And he would write a column about baseball DFS. And in like 2016, late 2016, early 2017, I think, I just ran into his column, and a new website had opened called Fantasy Draft, which is long gone. And they were running free rolls. And so he would say, you know, he'd be like, here's what I would play on Fantasy Draft. He was the only person doing Fantasy Draft content. And here's a free roll. And so I'd hop on there, did the free roll. First free roll I was in, I made like, I think like $50, like just right out the bat. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I didn't realize that it was because like maybe the competition was a little softer over there. But so I became just obsessed. Like, where are all the free rolls? I looked online, and there used to be some people on Twitter who would aggregate them, but they had fallen off. And I go, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start looking for all the free rolls, and then I'm just going to post them all to Twitter. And did that for a little while. And then was like, hey, I'm going to start a podcast where I talk about like concepts of free roll strategy, because I was doing really well. Like, my bankroll was coming up real quick. I'd never put $1 in on DraftKings, and I'm just like, this is good. And I started playing in like real contests because I've got enough money to really set some aside. And so I started doing a podcast in, I think, 2019. Okay. And so I'm still like every, you know, especially towards the weekends, posting a list. Here's all the free rolls. Here's everything about it. Engaging with people. Start doing a podcast. And I actually know when it was. November of 2019, well, let's do this one first. July of 2019, I did a podcast about League of Legends free rolls, because they were doing free rolls on DraftKings to try and get people to play League of Legends, a sport that DraftKings actually had been posting since 2015.
Really?
They were posting, okay. Yeah. David Stern, commissioner of the NBA, in 2014 was a group of founders of a company called Alpha Draft. You know this company?
I don't know.
Alpha Draft was an esports only DFS company that David Stern started.
Wow.
And it was acquired a year later by FanDuel. FanDuel paid an extreme amount of money for it. But FanDuel got a lot of good stuff out of it. If we want to talk politics, that allowed them to kind of grease the wheels into some of the legislative lobbyist side, because the people who had started Alpha Draft were much bigger swingers. And we talk about that David Stern level.
Mm-hmm.
But that was so to be competitive, DraftKings and FanDuel tried to get into Esports DFS in 2015, 2016. Yeah. So I posted a thing in 2019, a podcast about it in like July or August. And I don't think too much about it. And it was, I'd never seen League of Legends, but I was just cranking cash out of these DFS contests because they were really soft and nobody knew where to get lineups. And you just had to know a couple basic things. In November of that year, I posted my last podcast. It was about the Thanksgiving Day slate. And then I was working in grocery, and like COVID started to get serious for us. And the store that I was at was one of the first in the US to have a documented, in Durham, North Carolina. We had a couple of the first documented COVID cases in the US. And then it just like messed me up. I was just like, I didn't really want to be, I was just stressed all the time. I thought, I'm going to die at work. We had an employee die from COVID, which was like, months later. But
yeah, and at that point, nobody had information. Like we had
no,
nothing.
And it was crazy working in a store. I remember we got the first mandate to wear masks, and I'd have these people, they pull the mask off and spit in your face, dude. Like it sucked so bad. And I was just working there like a few days a week just for fun. But then I started working more and more, and I started getting really stressed, and because I just wanted to get out of the house. So then, COVID sports. So 2020, right? All the sports start to shut down, and League of Legends starts to come up, and I'm like, oh, I know how to do this.
Yeah.
And the death of sports there really kind of killed the Freerolls project.
Okay.
My whole idea was, DFS is an inverse funnel system. Like you got to have enough people coming in on the bottom, putting money in to get the money to the top. And when you're not like a full MME player, or you're not like very smart, or don't want to spend money for tools, and you're just kind of a step above the bottom of that inverse funnel system, you need people to constantly be coming in. And so like free rolls were a great way to introduce that. And I really felt like it was good for me because it was obviously my referrals were doing pretty well, and everything was good. But the companies just started to move away from that, and they moved towards like the stuff they could do. So FanDuel was doing, like The Bachelor.
Oh,
like
yes.
$10.
Yeah.
And you're like, and there's just, the edge was low. There's nobody in there. So then I basically pivoted over to almost entirely League of Legends and CSGO.
Yeah. And that's really, I had seen you around. I never listened to any of your podcasts, sorry to say. But I always remembered you in Roto Grinders. I mostly stuck to the bat at that point, in the bat channel, that like first season that I got the bat. But I remember seeing you and like, oh, this guy is a logical thinker. He's like one of the few in there that like actually thinks about things the same way I do, outside of like some of the people that I was meeting in the bat and learning from, some of the foundational stuff that I learned there. So I'd seen you there, and the other name I remember that, I don't know if was Yes Man. I don't know if he's still around.
Yes Man, he doesn't post very much. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, but him and I used to talk quite a bit. That guy was actually like a pretty high roller.
Yeah.
I don't know if people know that about him, but he knew what he was doing, and he did a lot of action.
Yeah. And I remember you talking to him, and he was another one that I would actually like read. There's so many people you just like wouldn't read what they said at a certain point. But yeah, I remember you guys interacting, and at that point, I'd sort of fell off. I didn't follow you or any of that. But then that's when you popped up again, was when the esports era, we'll call it the COVID esports era, came up. I started seeing your name again among other things, and that's sort of when I first started trying to, I don't know, I didn't know anything about it. I had no history with it, but there was just like a lot of dumb things out there about League of Legends, like people, and me being want to be a know-it-all, like, oh, I've not won anything at DFS, but I've learned all these things. Let me bring these things, try and bring them over and start talking about them. Like I know what I'm talking about. And at that point, I was just doing like implied probabilities of combinations, and that's sort of where I started pushing in my nose into things that I didn't belong in, and started conversing with like some of the people in that. And that's when you popped up again on my radar. So, and you know, interacting with some of the same people. So I think that's interesting. Like, and we'll get to the, you know, you're a guy that like keeps popping up onto my radar. Look, we're both kind of like guys that just hang around the DFS space. And I don't know that like either of us have really accomplished anything, but we just are kind of there.
No, I mean, like, I feel like this is one of those wild things for me because I interact with so many people like you that I'm just like, this person is like smarter than me, better than me. Like, I respect us so much. Like, you do content. We were talking about this before, but like, you do content at a weird time. And I listen to everything. Like, I just any free content that's out there, I'm just constantly listening to it. And so, like, especially like this on Friday nights, I'm just like, this is great. This feels like 1 hour of my time.
I'm glad I could help, but yeah.
Man, I don't even remember the Roto Grinders Discord. I think they kicked me out of it, but I know I'm not in there anymore.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting at certain points in time that I just left, and even the safe space of the bat like sort of got invaded by people that I didn't really care to talk to. So after that first season, I've had sort of a small group of people that I met there that we've been working together since then. So I sort of got that benefit, and we just pulled out sort of thing. But yeah.
See, my problem was I was too cheap, and so the Cadillac of esports touts, the only guys, honestly, like there's some guys out there who are good that have moved on to other things that are other places, but the esports department, when it came up, was just like, they were just like an obelisk, like a mono. They were just like, they got it. They got the best guys. I mean, like Gelati, if you know Gelati is like a genius. His Patreon's still very good. He does everything publicly. Like, nothing but respect for that guy. I love him. But I wasn't going to pay a subscription fee to be in the esports department. So I immediately was like, oh, I got to start building models. I got to learn how these games work. And at first I'm having great success with esports because everybody's getting in there. People are MMEing with money because they need the action.
Yes.
And they don't know who's starting. So that, like, half the lineups are dead going in. And so I'm just like, I feel like I'm just have a money printer. I'm going. And I'm in some Discords, apparently the Roto Grinders Discord, and I'm talking to people about it. And I start getting invited to other Discords. And then I started working for a couple of touts. That's what we're going to call them. And I would provide them with like optimal plays and projections and ways that lineups could theoretically be put together.
Yeah.
And so then I worked for a while as that, like until FanDuel shut down CSGO. That was that's really what killed me on that being like my full profession, is just doing esports stuff. And then it just really, that's about the time when the market started tapering anyways. But
yeah,
we're starting Worlds for League of Legends on Monday.
Yeah, I saw. So shout out to League of Items, Pikel, the guy who first pulled me into my first stream, because I was tweeting out those matchup probabilities and stuff. Yeah, I saw he started posting again that Worlds is coming up. So that leads me into my question. Like I'll throw in a lineup here or there just for the fun of it, but I've pretty much fallen off. I know League is bigger than CS:GO, and it's still going. What do you think about the current state of League DFS specifically?
It's too sharp.
Okay.
It's just too sharp. Like the people who are in there, you have people who are extremely knowledgeable, and then you have people who are just money bullies. Like it, the way that the DFS is set up for League of Legends, the actual pathway to winning on most slates is surprisingly narrow because the positions are so constricted, or restrictive rather. And so when you're really talking about a lot of slates where you might have just winners, you might only have 3 winners, 4 winners, you're really so constricted or restricted. And then once you add salary to it, and DraftKings has been escalating salaries over the last 6 months not the last couple months because there hasn't been anything really.
Yeah.
But the last 6 months of China and Korea.
So as in like the top teams are more and more expensive?
They've drifted all the salaries up, but especially tied to, because their algorithm sets salaries based on win likelihood, I think. Yeah. And so what they've done is they've escalated all the salaries, and they've gotten pretty lazy about it. And so it's really led to a lot more clumping. So you really have to play so many underdogs that if you're MMEing, I think there's still meat on the bone, but you're just putting so much money in for a contest where the top prize is often 20,000, 10,000, 5,000. It's like, man, I don't have that kind of money anyways, but I don't think there's a huge margin there.
It's funny because there was that weird dynamic of all the people that were there before. Like there's like that first ramp up of prize pools that they just like ate high on the hog, and they took advantage of everybody coming in. And then the tools started catching up. So some of the top tier players could use the tools to build and compete with them. Like I still think the people that were around still had an advantage there, but they were starting to split those prizes. And then everyone was like, oh, well, we need bigger prizes. We need more prizes, bigger prizes. Look at how much demand is. And there was that weird dynamic of who's been there, who's coming in, and like how they interacted and like learned from each other, and or like said, oh, these guys are dumb for doing this or whatever. And now we're at the point where it's from what you're saying, it's only the best of both of those people that are still there as the prizes shrink.
Well, I mean, you can go into any of the Discords, like even the esports department Discord anymore, and it's like there's people that come in there new, but they're not coming in to do anything, and there's not enough money coming in. But like the 2 guys, he says it ironically about himself. One of these people is constantly saying it as a joke about himself, but he's right so often. And I respect him about it. But Alex Baker, so Osimo, and Pete Overzet. If you watch what those 2 guys are doing, what they're spending their money on, what they're developing tools for, like, because it wasn't long until we saw Osimo at the top of a leaderboard for a Shock Blast, which is the big, like the $15 max contest on League of Legends. It's called Shock Blast. And once that happened, the prizes just started going up because we knew that his money was going in there, which meant he was developing the tools, and we'd see his subs in there. And then everybody was starting to give their subs breaks and discounts. So those subs were just putting more money in. And I think that was the point where Overzet called himself an esports thought leader.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, man. This guy is like always right. Like, and credit to you as well. Like people who are on best ball right now, like you guys are, you're ahead of the curve a little bit. because
Yeah, and
no, go
I
ahead.
kind of overplayed NFL more than I wanted to, because it kind of I have this feeling that like this is my last year to have any edge in NFL, especially best ball, just by doing logical drafting and correlative drafting. Like it feels like that's going to be gone soon. So yeah, it definitely trying to find the leading edge.
Well, it's such a benefit for these companies. I have 0 entries in Best Ball Mania. 0. I was like, why would I put my money into football? That like, there's just too much there. I have a bunch on DraftKings because they kept issuing me tickets. So I, for like one
Yeah.
whole day, just kept drafting, and that's going well for free stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
like,
it's hard to know now, but
yeah, I've got some lineups where it's like I have I have an Achan, Puka, full Miami, full like I have
nice.
some lineups that are bonkers, but it's because I just threw everything out the window when I was doing best ball. Because this is the thing to do. Like, not to like get ahead on anything, but like best ball strategy is to just literally ignore everything, right? I mean, are we to that point yet where the actual edge is just taking a position and then just drafting that position?
I
Like
mean,
going,
that's kind of what I did in NFL this year. Baseball, I'm still gonna have my player takes and stuff, but football, I just sort of like Lamar Jackson was the guy. Like, and I probably chased him too high up as ADP and blah blah blah. But like, I'm already here making this bet on this guy. It seems like it's okay to this point. Obviously, the pieces around him aren't really falling into place, but yeah.
yeah, but like ADP is largely driven by tout culture, right?
Yep.
So like it's almost entirely driven by a consensus among people who know football. Those people put out the same content every year, and people who follow that content are sometimes successful and they sometimes lose. But best ball, you have to squeeze through such a narrow little keyhole to get to the end, right? Because
Yep.
the structure of the payouts. So like just following the same advice of everybody that's in multiple drafts when you get to a contest that size, it seems wild to me. Like instead of just being like, like you still have to look at ADP to know when somebody's going to snipe you.
Yep.
Like if your main guy is Lamar Jackson, you got to make sure you're getting there before somebody else. But there's no reason if you're like my next guy is Puka, there's no reason that you don't take him when it comes up to take him. And I think right now that's the major edge that we're seeing in best ball is people that are drafting off the ADP screen or off of projections and are just like really working into the crowd. And so most of the rooms, how many lineups did you do for pennant?
The pennant, I got 42 in.
That's a nice number, Jackie. And like fantastic. But I'm going to guess that the last couple days, last like 3 days that you drafted, you probably ran into the opportunity from every position after 2 to just do full Philadelphia stacks, full Philly stacks. And it just,
They not so much Philadelphia, but Baltimore was the team that really never moved up. Philadelphia did move up through the draft season, and so it was harder to do, but it still was like you missed out on 2 of the top 5 guys compared to where you could get all of the top 5 guys. The top 5 being Nola, Wheeler, Harper, Turner, Schwarber.
that's
So,
wild, man.
which is perfectly fine, but you definitely saw like people splitting the ADP top ADP teams. Braves where it's 3 people, and I did try to get a few Braves teams in at the end, just to see how they felt, just to round it out a little bit. But yeah, and I think the lesson that I'm taking this year from that is that I probably don't need to draft at the end. Like it got worse at the end, and like I thought it would get better because there would be people building weird teams, but it just got more frustrating is really what it was. Like the stress level of doing a draft and getting sniped on somebody who didn't know what they were doing. So I definitely want to do more early. The hard part is filling a room early, but yeah.
Yeah, no, the last few days, which is when I did most of mine, which was a real mistake. I just kept getting forced into Philly. Like if I was in four, like position 4 or 5 or 6, it's just Philly, just all Philly. And I'd get 10 players. I could get Wheeler, Nola, 8 batters, and get like 1 through 8, get the whole lineup basically. It's wild. But early on, the ones I did early, I was able to go like, oh, Atlanta, anybody, or like early on, I got like Dodgers super cheap. And although actually I think Dodgers got cheaper as well. But anyways, my point is that I think there really is an edge in best ball that doesn't really exist so much in DFS, because the way that we've seen DFS contests and tools kind of coagulate, like the market has gelled, and there's a lot into it.
And that's sort of where the tools thing is really the other thing that pushed me into this thought this year, that for football especially, that maybe I should play a little bit more than I want, because the tools will be there next season. We saw some of them this year, mostly like exposure tools, and Brick was sort of working on his things that Underdog kind of restricted and DraftKings didn't. So those things are if not already in use this year, will be in use next year behind the scenes, maybe not publicly available, but it's just going to keep getting better. So yeah, I agree with you there that I still play DFS just because, but I don't play like 40 lineups. I'll play 2 or 3, and I at this point, I'm not like I've gone to just like not caring. Like I'll build the lineups 15 minutes before lock. Even baseball, I still got the bat this year, and I still like those projections, and those helped me out in the daily underdog stuff too, and which I did okay at. Yeah. But even that is becoming less of an edge there.
How did Underdog do it? How'd they do it?
What's that?
How'd they do it? How are they doing daily drafts? How did they win this war? They came out of nowhere to win the war.
Well,
there was a whole company, Draft. Do you remember Draft?
Well, they were Draft.
No, Draft got bought by FanDuel. FanDuel bought Draft, and they said, okay, we're going to do this. How did Underdog win this?
Because they were the guys from Draft.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I don't know who the people behind.
Okay, yeah. So I'll tell you the story. They sold it to FanDuel.
Started a company doing the same thing.
Well, they sold it to Paddy Power, who owns FanDuel.
Yeah.
And FanDuel didn't know what to do with it. Didn't have like any development, and just died there. And then there was no non-compete or whatever, so they just started it up again.
But this is what I mean. Like FanDuel, no company has run their business into the ground like as much as they have. They spent so much for that. They spent so much for Alpha Draft when they bought Alpha Draft to get into esports. And they just make these little things like, oh, we're going to spend, because they spent a lot for Draft when they bought it. And it was a big deal. And we were all like, okay, because I was on Draft. I love Draft. And I'm like, okay, great. This is fine. We'll put it on FanDuel. They'll integrate it. They'll do some free rolls. This is good for everybody. Contests will get bigger, because the contests on Draft I never felt like were big enough. And then FanDuel was like, we'll roll it out. And they did it. They just dragged it along for a year. Yep. And then when they rolled it out, they just kind of just shit it out there. I mean, they literally just like dumped it on a plate and were like, it's in the lobby. Good luck. And it's still there, I think. But I know that I can play like Wheel of Fortune against other people for $9 a pop and win money on FanDuel, whatever that is, FanDuel, whatever. But
I don't know.
Okay. It's so good to know. Thank you. Because I think about this constantly.
They just restarted the same thing. They just restarted the same thing, got new investors, and now we're past the draft era of Underdog, and they're just like in the process of going to be a sports book while trying to run these pick'em contests, and like it's easy to tell, and like they don't hide it. That's too well. They sort of obfuscate it a little bit, but that's where they make their money. Like that's the home page now. If you go to Underdog, it takes you to the pick'ems. So yeah, it's like I don't know. I'm not going to get into the legal blah blah blahs. I definitely not equipped to talk about that kind of stuff. I just think it's interesting how they established their brand on this draft game, and now they have this like diehard content factory user base that they're trying to keep happy while making their money on a different thing.
Yeah, I think they're gonna. So I can speak a little bit on this. As you may or may not know, my primary thing, DFS is literally like a time filler where I try to make just enough money to like pay my rent every month. I'm just like, this is X amount of money, $30 a day, $50 a day. That's all I care about. But my main thing is that I am the main researcher for a agribusiness lobbying firm. I think that's going to be the way we phrase it. If you've listened to me on other things, you might have a general sense of what that is. But based out of Colorado, and so I have a pretty good feel for what lobbyists have been looking for and what the legalization process was like, as well as implementation into states was like for other sports books, other DFS sites that turn into sports books. And I'm really interested to see how it's not that I don't think Underdog will get there. I'm interested to see what that looks like and how that affects the overall business. But that's really, like I mentioned before when we were talking some other time, like I feel like DFS is actively dying. And I think DraftKings is actively kind of sabotaging themselves to try and move as much business as they can off of DFS and put those dollars directly into more profitable venues like their sports book.
Oh, okay.
Like we're seeing twofold. One, the DFS generation is getting older,
Yep.
and so many people made enough money that they're not leaving. So there's no churn, and it doesn't open up space for new winners. I mean, there are new people coming in and winning, but like in general, the odds of coming in and being a long-term winner, I think at this point are pretty low. And I think that the general public is unwilling to invest the money that it takes to get to that level from zero, because the tools are very expensive. I mean, for a lot of these tools and memberships and what you need to be competitive from day one to learn the stuff is very expensive. And so that had always been my goal, was like, oh, with Freerolls, we can just teach people how to do this stuff. We can teach people these tools, what it looks like to be in an extreme low leverage situation, and how to fade the field, and how to use these tools. But, the death of Freerolls is a big one for me, to go, these businesses aren't really interested in bringing in new people.
Yeah.
Once DK went public, and now we've seen the revision of their member rewards program, which I feel personally attacked by that revision, because I was playing so little money, but I was always like, oh yeah, oh no, I can get to diamond, I can get to black, like, and it's like, how much money you play? I talk to other people, how much money you play? I don't know, like $40-$50 a day, like tops. Sometimes it's like $4.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that? And it's like, oh, you do the achievements, then you make sure that you're hitting every promo just the right way, and then you're taking, high-end returns out of the sports book so that you're getting these coins. And even in their email, when they were like, we've revised it, they're like, because we don't want people to be gaming the system. I'm like, well, like, but so, and there are other people who are like whales in the industry who also, even though they don't need the return, are also pretty vocally upset about the changes to it. And it's like, man, we're seeing a lot more empty lobbies during competing sports. Right now, it's hot. Football season. You ever look at DraftKings stock prices?
No.
October, right around October 1st, ever since they've gone public, so it's been a few years, the stock will go down, 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 down. And then it starts the first week of football season. And then like week 5, it hits its high point and then it goes down.
Okay.
And so if you bought like a couple months ago, it was like $9 and now it's like 30.
Yeah.
And in a couple weeks, my gut guess is that it'll be probably like low 20s again.
All right. Not financial advice, but
not financial advice. It's just,
I mean, but
just
you're
based
kind
on
of past the point.
Very, very small trending. I don't think.
I will say that even you say that lobbies are hot, but I think contests are smaller. I mean, I know contests are smaller, and if you look at the peripheral stuff, the ticket contests, the satellite entries, those aren't filling as much as they used to. The tier stuff doesn't fill as much as it used to. Like I went on this Sun Run this spring with the World Baseball Classic because nobody was playing it. Like the contests weren't that big, but I thought for sure more people would get into it. Like because it was a fairly interesting phenomenon, like pop culture phenomenon in the sports world that I thought more people would look into it, but they didn't, and I just sort of took advantage of that there.
Yeah, I mean, like that's the.
But the peripheral stuff is shrinking and not filling, despite the bigger stuff still doing pretty okay.
I mean, football's doing well, and then like the contests are filling quickly, but that's not necessarily a great sign. Like, for like, we'll see when NBA hits. That's actually going to be a pretty good one, a pretty good marker. But NHL last year, the contests declined for the first time in some time, not noticeably, but a little bit. And NBA, I think we had a small amount of decline, but it's like hard to compare because we have those COVID seasons right in the middle.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I think there's like real concern to be like, is this a good investment of money if you're not in that consistent top 20%, especially considering where, like, we know the names. I mean, I don't think it's like wrong to be like, we know who the 10 best, 20 best people playing the game are and how much money they're putting in and what they're looking at taking out at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but even those numbers, I think we're going to see are going to go down a bit.
And I've been chasing this stupid $333 contest. That's like it's running for the MLB show, the first Game 1 showdown. I don't know what the contest is gonna be like, but I've been chasing these stupid tickets, and these like high dollar contests are like 4 out of 7, 3 out of 5, and it's always Mock Lovin'. And I'll call that name out. Like, so when you see him entering these top tier contests as like, that's where he's pushing his bankroll is on all these satellite contests. Like he's winning a ton of entries into these high dollar entry contests, like on the cheap. And he can do it because he can just push his bankroll into it. And it's really been frustrating for me personally because he's just running optimal type lineups and I'm trying to get interesting or dumb or whatever. But
but I mean, these guys came in and I respect the hell out of them because they recognize that there's like a thing where it's just like, if we maximize the money here, the output is likely to be this and this, and we know how to build that. And there's a handful of people that have done extremely well and know exactly how to do it. And like, I have never been at that bankroll level where I would have felt comfortable putting anywhere close to that money into the system that some of them had to at one point. Let alone, like, it's not money I would feel comfortable gambling. I mean, people say it's skill, but bro,
yeah, for sure.
Come on.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah. And
that's legally playing skill games.
That's always why I've been low stakes, is because I don't want to enter. Like when I enter a contest, I want to be able to say that money's gone. And like getting over that mental hurdle is good for playing in certain ways to take advantage of ownership, blah blah blah, all that sort of stuff. So, and like these guys, they got to a point where they could do that at that top tier level, and they're grinding out whatever percentage wins, and they're still they're still wanting to get that milli hit too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I will. This is the hottest take that you will ever have anybody have on this show. The best position that you can have. This is not financial advice, but the best position you can have is to put one entry into the DraftKings Millie Maker every week. One single entry. That's it. And honestly, you could just randomize the players you play. Because we know out of the top 10 what 6 of those people are going to be. But it is very often some weirdo at the top who entered 4 lineups. One of them was empty or blank. One of them had players that didn't start, and then one of them just bings because
and it's their team or their username is Bears fan, and they 5-stack the Bears.
Well, it's a walrus ball's 210. But it is definitely one of those things where I think not enough people look at DFS as gambling. We're told legally it's a game of skill. It's a game of skill. There's some chance involved in a game of skill. And then we tell ourselves, oh, it's a game of skill. I can get good and I can beat it. But everybody who's I can get good and beat it, those are the first people who lose all their money. It's the people who are there's odds here. There's probabilities. We can do this. And so if you're looking at a way to get into DFS and you're saying, all I really want to do is win $1 million, don't mess around with anything else. Just shoot for $1 million.
Yeah.
Just lose $15. What it's not even, I think it's 10, right? On DraftKings. Just lose $10 a week or $15 a week.
Yeah, it's different week to week. Yeah.
Yeah. Just throw it in there. It's money lost. Who cares?
That's why that same similar attitude is you talk about the churn of new players. That's why they're going to betting or parlays, or because they don't and Pete Overzet has said it, and that's where I first heard it. People don't care about the picks that you're giving them on your friends. They just want something to sweat. And that's where the churn is going, is into these, as more states come legal gambling, and DraftKings is moving them over there and blah, blah, blah. But that's where that entry level DFS player is going. The people, obviously there's more people that want to get into the parlays and whatever, but that pool of people that you could pull into DraftKings that have that fantasy or sports or gambling, whatever vibe we'll call it, they don't need to come to DFS anymore.
Yeah. DraftKings tried to do a soft launch version of this a while ago in a way so that it would be legal in all states. Did you ever play any of the DraftKings pools?
Yeah.
Okay. So what happened with Freerolls basically is that a few years ago, their sponsors stopped cash pooling. So instead of being here's 40 grand a week to run whatever DFS contests, they started doing pools in the pools, which are hosted on the sportsbook. So if you're in the DraftKings app, it opens up a browser that goes to the DraftKings sportsbook app. And so not only was it a way to move DFS players over to the sportsbook, but it was a way to kind of soft step, their pools, which are effectively just pick 'em parlays, right? Because it's just
Sure. Yep.
You're just picking 6 or whatever, and then you just do it, and it's a parlay, and then the pools pay at the end.
Yeah, who's going to score the most out of these 6 teams, or who's going to win in this matchup?
But you know why it doesn't work? Because
Legally,
on Underdog, well, no, I mean it works, but nobody plays them.
Yeah.
They had cash contest ones for a while, and they may still, but they just don't do business. But on Underdog, you get red lights, yellow lights, and green lights.
Refresh. Oh, a red.
So you're going to say to your friends, oh, I would have had it all, except for Khalil Herbert didn't have 142 combined yards, or whatever it is. And so you look at it and you go, but it gives you that real satisfaction. It gives gamblers that real satisfaction where they can look at it and go, I got this right. And DFS doesn't give you that. And I think that is also part of the reason why new players find Pick'em a lot more interesting, is that you feel like you're getting it right sometimes, even when you're getting it wrong. Oh, I got 3 out of 5, or I got 4 out of 5. I should have paid for insurance. Insurance is a scam. This isn't financial advice.
But no, that is. Don't take insurance.
If you have a prop that has a chili pepper and the chili pepper is over 1.5, get the insurance. Get the insurance because they've juiced it for a particular reason, and that extra bit will pay for the insurance. But no, I think this is what players like, is that internal, like the immediate gratification of feeling like they got it right or got it wrong, and they don't have to wait for a slate to end to know that they've lost all their money, and they can put money in right away, and they can put more money onto things, and it's a great model. I'll be sad when they become a full-time sports book and they continue limiting their combinations of picks like they have in the past that have made it difficult to play some as well.
Yeah, and going the other side of things on those pick'ems, like you don't have to look at odds, like, and understand odds, or you just see this number, and like when you're doing regular parlays at a sports book, you still see a number, right? But then there's this weird plus minus thing, and like I still don't. I always have to think about it. Like it's obfuscated for a reason. Like, and it scales up weird, and so. But when you're doing a pick'em, you're just like over or under. There's no odds. I just know this guy. He sucks in this matchup. Like that cornerback, blah blah blah, is going to take him out. So that's an under, and so they get to apply that without that layer of probability.
Yeah. Man, I think there's really two types of guys, two types of people in DFS and in Pick'em and everything else. There's analytics people and there's vibes people. There's a third type, which is vibes people pretending to be analytics people. And like I'm probably that third type, where I'm like, I build projection models, I build simulation models. I build all this stuff. I love doing it. It's fun for me to play around in spreadsheets and figure out how the data correlates and how these things are going to work out. But like at the end of the day, honestly, man, 100% vibes. It's about storytelling. Like, this is the thing I feel like the biggest angle people don't get, is that they just do stuff that doesn't tell a story, or it tells a story that's so improbable or unlikely or unbelievable. They're like, it just... there's no romance in it. Like, as weird as that sounds, when you're doing DFS, you should be able to look at those lineups and know what has to happen in a game for those things to happen. And you should feel it, like, but
yeah, I'm definitely still mostly the analytical side. But I've let vibes come in more and more as time goes on.
Well, I think like as we move more towards best ball, before we wrap up, as we move more towards best ball, just like as a general model, as much as I hate parking money, like the pennant is a big one for me, because I took all my credit and put it into the pennant. Because I hate parking the money, because I just don't put that much on.
Yeah.
But like this is the thing. Best ball is very much about storytelling. Like, you can look at all the analytics. Like, I posted a bunch of stuff that I'm always post half of it as a joke, where I'm like, just ignore this. This isn't anything. But like, you look at the analytics and you go, this is who's going to likely to win, and this is what will happen in that next matchup, and this is how these points build out. But that's all storytelling. That's all storytelling. What those teams have to do to get those wins, and what pitchers have to do in order to beat certain teams. Where those strikeouts are going to be, and getting a mental picture of that in that story, and then putting it into the draft and into your lineups is like, I think that's the number one thing that players, especially players who are buying analytics packages, are often missing out on. And we see it in their lineups,
Yeah.
But it won't matter for too much longer. Hopefully they all move to best ball and we can take their money for a couple months, and then they'll take all my money, and then I'll live in a trailer.
All right, this is completely unrelated to anything, but I saw this on Twitter today or tonight, and this is a bag of sunflower. I don't know if you're a sunflower seed guy. I am, but Cecilia's Family Barbecue posted that Nikki Lopez now has special sunflower seeds coming from Taiwan. And I was like, that's awesome. I got to try it. And then I looked at it, and there's this thing that says, I can't zoom in on it. It says coconut flavor.
Yeah, coconut flavor. What's your issue here?
The
You've never
issue,
had flavored sunflower seeds?
oh, all the time, but coconut flavor.
Are you like,
You're okay
what's
with
your
this?
issue? What's your issue? Is that you like, if he wants coconut, he could just get dried coconut and eat it? Is that your problem?
No, coconut is disgusting. That's my issue here.
Oh, so your issue is that you, as an adult, have never fully formed a palate. Like
Whoa.
You don't have taste. No,
All
it
right.
happens to lots of people. And after COVID, so many people lost their sense of flavor for long periods of time. Like, no, who doesn't want crunchy coconut? This is like, I'm not even a sunflower. I buy the shelled sunflower seeds in bulk at Sprouts. I just buy scoops of shelled sunflower seeds.
Okay.
They're great on salads. They're like
Oh,
great
yeah.
as a handful.
It's all
Make
about
your
the
own sunflower
activity.
butter.
It's all about
But
the
like,
activity.
if you like cracking them, give me those coconut ones, man.
No, all right.
Do they make mango?
I don't know, but we're gonna have to stop the show now.
Oh,
I thought you were gonna be all this time. I feel like we were vibing and here and now. I don't know if I'm gonna have you on
this
again.
is censorship, brother.
All right.
I really appreciate you having me on, man.
Yes, this
I
was
hope that
awesome.
the 4 viewers who watched this really
I think
enjoyed
we had
it.
a max of 2 at a time, and
Oh.
it was mostly Nez and your guy Frank. So thank you two for watching. If you did make this far and somehow didn't hear about it in the beginning, if you want to come on to like a underdog sort of player roundtable discussion next week, hit up my DMs. Brad, it was awesome. You can follow him, Freerolls DFS on Twitter. If you want, sometimes he'll put out information. Sometimes but most of the time he'll make sarcastic remarks that I enjoy.
I'll probably churn out projections for League of Legends Worlds once we get through the first week. I'll probably be posting projections. I usually do post League of Legends projections.
Yeah.
So if people care about that, I put them up there, and then you can lose your money by following them.
All right. Well, everybody have an awesome weekend, and we'll catch you next week.